So we are going to study a model that can tell you the equilibrium in the goods and service market. That model is called the Keynesian cross. First, we can show the graph of the Keynesian cross. The Y variable on the Keynesian cross model is aggregate expenditure, AE. The X variable is total GDP, or big Y. So this model includes two sides. So first, let's draw the aggregate expenditure curve. As aggregate expenditure curve is our sloping curve. So let's write out the AE. Then we draw the 45-degree line. Keep in mind, the second line here is very simple. It simply is the line shown here, 45-degree line. So what does this model tell us? And when we studied the aggregate demand, we know aggregate expenditure is kind of the variable can represent the aggregate demand. The aggregate expenditure include the four components: consumption from the household, investment from the firm, spending from government, and net export from the foreign countries. So AE line here, the upward sloping curve, basically tell you what would be the aggregate demand of the whole economy. And the Y here means the goods and the service produced in the whole society. Another word to say, the Y is a GDP. So Y represents the aggregate supply. So that's important part of this model. You have to keep in mind the aggregate expenditure kind of represent aggregate demand side. The Y kind of represent aggregate supply side. So the following idea is the same as the microeconomic model we studied. Supply curve and the demand curve determine the equilibrium point. So in our model, aggregate expenditure curve and output curve Y will tell you the equilibrium output. So equilibrium output is intersection here, Y0. Equilibrium aggregate expenditure is AE here, AE0. And the intersection of these two curves is called a Keynesian cross. And you can imagine this is the model developed based on the idea from the economist John Keynes. Okay. So the model tells you the equilibrium in the goods and service market for the whole society. Remember, this is not a model that shows the equilibrium for a single good. It's the whole society, whole economy, the equilibrium. And some of you may ask the question, if the GDP Y1 is smaller than 0, what happened? Yeah, first we can show where is the Y1 in the graph. If the Y1 smaller than 0, Y1 will be on the left hand side of the Y0. Let's draw the vertical curve. This vertical curve first will intersect with the Y curve. So which means this point here will be Y1. Remember, the Y curve is a 45-degree line. So the distance between this point and this point here should be same as this point and this point here. this vertical line also intersects the aggregate expenditure curve. So this tells you the aggregate expenditure under the Y1. So let's assume this is AE1. So if the Y1 is smaller than Y0, when the output is smaller than the equilibrium output, we can see clearly from the graph Y1 smaller than AE1. So which means the output produced is less than the demand for the goods and the services. Demand for goods and services are pretty strong under this case. And you can imagine if the demand is strong, the firms, the consumers, and the government, and even foreign sectors try to buy more goods and services. So in that case, what happened to the inventory? If everyone come here to buy stuff, and if you are firms or company manager, you will see your company's inventory level will drop a lot. Yeah, imagine if everyone go to the Walmart to buy goods and service. What happened to the goods and that put on the shelf of the Walmart? They are gone quickly. So which means the inventory level drops. If the inventory level drops, it sends a signal to the manager, to the firms. Demand is strong, firm need to produce more goods and services. So firm will decide to produce more under this case. If every firm in the society make the similar decision to increase output, what happened to the Y? You can say total GDP will increase. Yeah, that's right. So at the point of the Y1, because of the low inventory level, firm decide to produce more, Y1 will start to increase. So the whole society will move from Y1 to Y0. So this tells you if equilibrium output is below, if the aggregate output is below the equilibrium output, the GDP will increase and the whole society will move automatically back to the equilibrium level Y0. Similarly, you can show if total GDP is greater than equilibrium output, suppose Y2 here. Use the same idea, you draw the vertical line. So this vertical line will intersect with the aggregate expenditure first. So this tells you what will be the aggregate expenditure under this output level, AE2. It also tells you the Y2, the GDP level. And you can see the aggregate expenditure, AE2 here, is smaller than Y2. Aggregate expenditure represents the demand side. Y represents the supply side. So for the whole society, goods and services produced, Y2, is much higher than goods and services demanded, AE2. So what happened to the inventory of the firms? You can imagine, because the goods and the service produced here is much higher than what goods and services are demanded, the inventory level is going up. Inventory going up means what? The firm may not sell out all the products they want to sell, and the firm will decide to cut the output. As a result, if you look at the GDP is going down because every firm of the society makes a similar decision to reduce the output. And GDP at the Y2 here will start to reduce. And the whole economy will move from the Y2 to Y0 automatically. So Keynesian clause tell you the equilibrium in the market for the goods and the services. No matter the GDP or total output Y1 or Y2 is smaller or greater than Y0, the whole society will move automatically back to the equilibrium point Y0 and the AE0. So Y0 here tell you the equilibrium output in the goods market.